Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So gold is at $2,071 an ounce. Lumber had an all-time high a while back of $650 per thousand. It's at $641 per thousand right now. We are going to reach an all-time high with lumber. I was reading an article about how grocery prices are on a monthly increase, are the highest since 1974. Things are becoming more expensive. The Federal Reserve had always tried to stimulate the economy during recessions by dropping interest rates. See, the dropping of interest rates would get people out there, entice them to go out there and borrow money so they can get cars and houses and go on vacation and to spend that money into the economy. But they ran out of room when they had interest rates at zero. So they're relying on fiscal policy. They're relying on the government to spend money into the economy to get things going. They opened up a bunch of lending facilities to try and make the availability of credit more accessible to businesses and households, as they put it. I think it's funny. During a time when people are hurting, they say, here, have some debt. Let's make it even harder for you by giving you some relief right now. Because if they can't make it, if they can't take that money and be able to get back to where they were and get that debt out from underneath them, then it's just going to be ever so more burdensome if they keep going. Now they have even more to pay back during a time when it's difficult. See, lending money to somebody who's in bad shape is not a good idea. You lend money to somebody who's in good shape, or else you're taking on a lot of risk. And that's what we're facing right now. Is that a lot of people are sitting in a situation where they don't have a lot of money, but they have a lot of debt. And so the Federal Reserve, in conjunction with the government, has set up availability of getting forbearance on your loans, setting up rent moratorium so you don't have to pay rent, giving out $600 a week bonuses, essentially, for being unemployed, getting paid more to be unemployed than you were to work. All this stuff to try and bridge over the recession that has taken place. This is something that I thought was interesting as I think about this, and that up until the lockdown took place, me and a lot of other YouTubers and a lot of other people out there were saying that all the signs of a recession are here. The indicators are screaming, are flashing red, that there's a recession on its way. And then we get hit with this lockdown from the coronavirus, and everybody says, oh, it was the coronavirus that caused this recession. Even though all these people were like, well, what about all the indicators that were leading up to this? Does anybody have anything to say about that? No. Every article you read, everything that you ever hear, due to the coronavirus lockdown or due to the coronavirus, pandemic, whatever, they always precede the term recession with coronavirus caused. So now they have all this money that they have pretty much stimulated the economy with. And you know what most people do with their money? You know what the average person who has nothing, like they have no money, and they get a check for $1,200, you know what they do with it? The first thing they do is they get this huge relief. All this stress just comes off of them. Because if you have no money, that's a very stressful thing. I don't care if you are in charge of a $100 million deal. If you are broke, flat broke, and your tire goes out, the stress level of trying to or to get that $100 million deal done, and the stress level of trying to get to work when you know you have a flat tire and you don't have any way of fixing it, is the same. That stress is the same. Okay? So not having money is a very stressful thing. And so when you get a check for $1,200 and you have nothing, that is a huge relief. And the first thing that you're probably going to do is pay that back rent or pay off some credit card debt or buy new tires. right? You're going to do something really smart with that $1,200. And then you're going to reward yourself with a bag of weed, or going out and hanging out at the bar, or just buying some fancy new toy. And then you'll put the other $300 in a safe spot, like in the bank or maybe in an envelope in your drawer. And over the course of the next month or two, you'll nickel and dime that away. That's probably the average stimulus check. Everybody else will put it in their bank account and forget they even had it, or they even got it. See, a friend of mine, I was telling him, it was just like a lot of people had saved their stimulus. He goes, not me, I spent mine right away. And I said, what'd you buy? And he says, I paid my taxes with it. And I'm like, well, you didn't buy anything. You were going to pay your taxes anyway, so you kept the money. Essentially, you didn't buy anything. Yeah, I didn't tell him that, but that's what I was thinking, and I'm sure a lot of other people did the same thing. Like, they paid a bill that they were going to pay anyway, they just used that to do it, but not realizing that that's saving the money. That was saving it. And so a lot of people had saved this money. So the money velocity never picked up quite as much as it probably was thought it would have when they issued out these stimulus checks, because I'm sure that they probably thought that everybody was just going to go spend it right away and didn't think a lot of people were going to hold on to it. I'm sure they didn't think a lot of millennials were going to open up Robinhood accounts and start playing day trader. So now this money is really starting to find its way into the economy, and you're starting to see it. You see it in the gold prices. Gold has always been a hedge against inflation, and you're seeing it at its all-time highs. What does that tell you? Inflation is on its way. Grocery bills are out there, highest monthly increase since 1974. That's huge. That's a sign. Regardless of how we got here, it's showing that it's taking place, and that's all that matters. So the Federal Reserve, over the course of the next few months, has stated, over the past few months back, saying that into the future here, that we're going to experience inflation, and that they're going to let inflation run hot for a while to make up for the back time. See, over the last 10 years, I think they've met their goal of 2% inflation. I think one of the articles I was reading was something like 3 out of the last 10 years were they able to achieve a reasonable closeness to that 2%. Otherwise, they've been under. So they've been trying to get 2% inflation, still haven't achieved it yet. And so once they do, they're going to let it run hot for a little while over that 2%, make up for the lost time, and then begin to raise interest rates. That's why you hear about 2 years out or so. It could happen faster than that. If all of a sudden people start relinquishing that money out of the bank accounts and into the economy and start spending that money really fast because they feel that inflation is on its way, then you could have inflation run away all by itself. Especially if it starts losing the world reserve's global status. Or the global reserve status, I'm sorry. And all that money that's floating around the world starts coming back to the United States, starts flowing back in. Then you could really see some inflation. So the idea that interest rates are going to stay low forever is not a possibility. It's not going to happen. And I understand that there's no way that the government can service its debt when you have interest rates as low as they are and deficit spending as high as it is, and the racked up debt that has taken place, all these little kids, and all these debts that have taken place. There's no way that the government can handle an interest rate rising in the situation that we're in. Doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. Okay? Because you can either destroy the currency through weakness and everybody gives up on your currency and all that comes flooding back into the United States, or you can start cutting government, start raising taxes, start lifting interest rates, start dealing with the pain that needs to be done. There is going to be some sort of ending to it. I mean, it's got to go one way or the other at some point. And they can skate that thin red line as long as they want, but it's not gonna last forever. And at some point there will be a decision to be made. And I'm sure most people feel that the Federal Reserve will continue to print into infinity, which would essentially destroy themselves, make themselves irrelevant. Or once the inflation starts kicking in and you see the prices rise at a pace that is no longer feasible for the average person, and they start raising the interest rates, we're going to see a whole new system take place. All right. Uneducated Economist, I got to go. It's getting hot in this car. You guys let me know.